The date is February 13th, 1986. This is Bill Hagmaier along with Special Agent the Jacksonville Division. The interview is being held at the Florida State Prison in Rayford, Florida, and the interviewee is Theodore H. Bundy.
And I don't blame them, but that's the way it is. They were nervous as hell. I was talking to the New York Times person yesterday. You know, what can I say to him? You know.
Well, as an attorney, you know, I don't always agree with what attorneys do or don't do, but as an attorney, you can appreciate their interest anyway. I mean, that's what they're there for.
It's never bothered me. And I'll say what I want to say. And I know what I should and shouldn't say.
No, I was going to get back to Green River, but I don't want to interrupt you.
Oh, well, Green River I don't know if you've read some of the letters that I've written.
I haven't seen anything.
I've probably written them over 200 pages worth of
You had
stuff.
mentioned in the letter that you written to me that you had written to him and you hadn't heard a whole lot recently.
He stopped writing to me in September. I don't know why. I wrote him a 20-page letter and posed a number of ideas and looking for some feedback or something, and he never wrote back. And well, you know, he's got more to do than write to me. That's all. And I don't take offense.
Yeah, but basically you feel that you've got an investment of your time and sharing whatever you'd like to see, what the results may or may not be.
You know, I thought that I might have something to add because, like, I feel let's talk about a computer program. They've developed this massive. Here they developed some kind of computer program or programs, and told me something about what they were thinking of doing, and I don't know what else they've done. But I mean, there are a lot of programs that I can run, okay, and I don't need to spend $2 million to do it. If I had the data, now I can realize I understand why they can't show me stuff or tell me stuff, and I don't want to know. But just seeing those crime scene photos was something of a revelation, you know, because I could see some of the changes the guy was going through, at least on a superficial level. To me, a superficial level, because the person that they're looking for, assuming it's one person, may still be and was then a real living, viable, breathing human being that just went about his life in a way that made sense to him. Okay, he wasn't a monster and isn't a monster. Because again, when you start using those pejorative terms and those passionate terms, he's a sick, demented person. Okay, sure. Now but remember, there's a lot in him that's in you.
Of course there is.
And there's nothing in this guy. There's nothing this guy has thought that you haven't thought in one way or another at one time. Okay? And
he did all right, for whatever reason carried the thoughts a step further.
Sure.
Is your gut feeling that you brought up an interesting point? Do you think there could be more than one person responsible for this?
Well, I just don't have enough information, and what little I've seen.
I haven't even seen all the crime scene photos, so I mean,
my gut.
Give me credit for about 36 now or something like that.
Yeah.
Good round number.
Yeah. At least, you know, if they have 10 or 15 more missing.
Something like that, yes. Well,
you know, that's really a bottom line. I mean, we're talking about a lot more. The guy didn't get killed in an automobile accident somewhere. No, it looks. I mean, it looks like one person. Sure. Looks like one person.
Okay, you're mentioning, and I certainly agree with you, that the rest of us have the same kind of thoughts and perhaps feelings that individual would have. With that in mind, do you think he could have just stopped? I mean, it's been quite some time. Can a person be believed to stop and his feelings are then satisfied, and their needs are suppressed or whatever? Or do you think that he's been taken out of the population and basically that's why, to our knowledge, no more have occurred?
Very good question. My response to that, a year and a half ago when I talked to
Was it that long ago?
well, it was October of '84. October, November of '84. I spoke to them here in this room. A couple days we talked. And then I was exercising more of a conventional wisdom about, well, saying more or less, based upon what I know and what I've read, no, this guy is, going to go till he burns himself out, because, listen, in the year and a half he was active, at least the year and a half with the data, the evidence shows he was active from July of 80, to get my dates, 82 to December of 83. He is accredited with at least 45 people just in King County. Now that is super intense. I don't think anybody can appreciate the level of intensity that exhibits, because I don't think that's way above the mean average of frequency for a serial killer. That'd be my guess. And still he avoided detection. That's an extraordinary achievement. Even though he was dealing with a very vulnerable victim class, which, it's very hard to investigate cases involving the murders of prostitutes to begin with.
It's not a real high-risk crime for the offender.
Right. It's very low risk. And even though he was just so bold as hell, I can't believe his brashness.
He's been lucky.
And lucky, and going back to the same area with all hell breaking loose, and all the prostitutes on the streets fully aware of what was going on, and continued to get victims. But could he stop, though? That I have thought about that. We know so little, and I wondered, is it possible? Would it be possible under those circumstances, as intense and as into it as he obviously was? Could he stop? And we know so little about the behavior patterns of persons who commit serial murder. I mean, on a grand scale. I mean, it's not like you can go to you're a behavioral scientist and you can just invite a whole bunch of people into a room and have them fill out questionnaires. I mean, there's just so much that's unknown. But I think I don't think it's inconceivable that could happen. I don't think it's inconceivable. Just as people change behavior drastically and are transformed for whatever reason, whether they live lives where they're alcoholics or whatever their personal problem might be. I think there are instances in life that we all have seen where people had serious problems and just came to grips with them and dealt with them and stopped. Now, most people aren't able to do that, but I agree. I mean, most people just go on until, they're arrested, or, they're alcoholics, or, they lose their job, or they get a divorce, or some crisis happens in their lives. But there are people, I think, who are capable, for whatever reason, of facing up to, the difficulties they're having and the distortions of their minds, and reforming themselves. Now, I think this is highly unlikely, but I don't think it's inconceivable. But again, you just don't know. It would be extraordinary if someday you found out this guy just stopped, But
speak in terms of equating it like with alcoholism, which may not be like an escape or whatever for people, and it's difficult for them to overcome it, but occasionally they can. And like a serial murder, at least from my own personal perception of the Green River case and some others like it, appears to be a crime, behavior, activity, whatever, of almost a power. And I would use the word possession, total possession. That's the way I perceive people who are serial murderers, whom we would term organized, so to speak, and you're certainly familiar with how we categorize people. I can't envision what goes on in their mind when they're actually controlling and killing, okay, and whatever else may or may not be involved, whether it be playing out a sexual fantasy or exploration or whatever, but the actual being there at the moment that life is gone. To me, it's almost like a total possession. That person would be mine. No one else in the world can control that person. There's nothing that person can do anymore for themselves. Totally in my hands. Okay. They left this earth in my hands. They had no choice. No one could stop me at that particular time. I can only imagine that it's almost in a sinister way as society would look at it, but almost a euphoric feeling. And a person that's so active as this guy has been, if he is due the credit that has been given to him, I can't think of anyone else in our society who has been basically given credit for that many in that short a period of time. It must be just a tremendous drive, almost a need for this feeling of possession. I don't think it is so much to just eliminate a life. I mean, there were easier victims for him to find. Prostitutes are certainly high and highly visible, but he could have taken children, could have taken elderly people or something like that in another way. But the ones he was choosing basically are very spirited type of folks. They're outgoing. They're out on the streets constantly dealing with other people. And it's a challenge for him. They're going to fight back a little bit, but he just totally controlled them. And I just wonder, to me, I just can't equate it so much with like alcoholism or a habit or something. Can you actually get that out of your system? I mean, is that possible to stop? I mean, that's been one of the real big burning questions for us. You know, we look at ages, of course, and activity. Does a person like this start to burn out at some point? Or what? I don't know what you're...
I think you're right on in your questions. I can understand.
I'm asking an awful lot of questions.
No, sure.
At one time.
I can see where your mind's going, and I see that you're probing and you're trying to understand, and you're dealing, you know, with some very important kinds of issues and concepts. But don't sell yourself short. You can understand. Okay, you can understand because in your own way, there are things in your own life where you experience that kind of intensity and that kind of a power. Maybe you have problems, or anybody has problems they can't control. And I don't mean to demean or diminish the seriousness of what happened, say, in the Green River case. It was obviously a very serious, very tragic situation. But to that person who's doing it, it makes sense at the time. And who knows what all the emotions and the passions and the mental images that are rushing through his mind before, during, and after. This is, of course, extremely important from both a behavioral scientist's point of view and a law enforcement's point of view. But you can begin to get inside this man's head if you try to use personal experiences as a guide to a certain extent. And I guess there's no way to know precisely what he thought or what he did until he tells you. And I think sometimes I could see myself trying to figure out what's going through the Green River killer's head to the point where I was just driving myself nuts. Why? Why this and not that? Why prostitutes and not children or old people? Why the river? Why the mountains? You know.
Now you know what a profiler goes
Sure.
through. Exactly.
And you just don't have the data to make those kinds of decisions. For instance, let me give you an idea. When I was talking to Bob Keppel, they said, do you think this guy would keep the stuff he's taking from the victims? You know, the personal possessions that apparently we weren't finding any. I said, well, yeah, maybe, maybe not. But you don't know. You don't have any information really to say for sure one way or the other. And if you have a hot suspect and he doesn't have anything, that doesn't mean he's not the person. On the other hand, if you have a hot suspect and you search his apartment, you find lockers full of stuff, well, you've got him, right? So it doesn't really, it's an important thing to keep in mind, but don't torture yourselves over it because there's no way to know. You have no information. One interesting thing they did find that they said, you know, we found a couple miles away from the site where this victim was found, we found her driver's license. What do you think was happening there? Were they fighting? This is what they told me. Now, I don't know if they were being straight with me. This was one of the victims named Kimmy Pitts or something was found in the Kent Valley. We found her driver's license over here, you know, on the side of freeway. What was going on? I said, well, I don't know, but you know, I seriously doubt they were fighting. I don't think very many of these victims had a chance to fight with the guy. He was very, very efficient at whatever he was doing. I mean, this is really the extraordinary accomplishment, if you want to look at it, of this particular individual, that nobody that anybody knows of that I am aware of got away from him. And considering the streetwise nature of the people he's up against, it's quite, it's, I say, an accomplishment, in quotes.
What is?
You know,
That's
I mean,
a good word to use. It is an accomplishment.
Certainly not, not a positive one, but an accomplishment nonetheless.